Part 3. According to Wikipedia under Rhodes, perceptual context. All scholars agree none of the physical evidence for each Greek invasion makes sense whatsoever. They only know there was a changing of the guard because the language, etc. changed. Nothing more. Now let's check out what the historians will tell us about Greek history. Oh yeah, remember when the scriptures told us Carthage and the sons of the Rhodians were Saul's merchants? And remember how we just discovered the Talchians were the original inhabitants of the island of Rhodes and were known in Crete and Cyprus? I can't hear your answer because this is a video. But if you said yes, let's check out Greek history. The first one, Minoan era. Quote, in the 16th century, the Minoans came to Rhodes. Later Greek mythology recalled a Rhodian race called the Talchians and associated the island of Rhodes with Danaus. It was sometimes nicknamed Talchinus. Example, mind you now, nobody knows where the Minoans originally came from, only that they just showed up in the 16th century BC. My theory is that the people we call Minoans were the sons slash replicas of the original Gentiles. This is the reason why there was no mention of a hostile takeover of the island. Let's continue to see if there is another bloodless takeover pulse. The next one, the Mycenaean era. All right. Quote, in the 15th century BC, Mycenaean Greeks invaded. After the Bronze Age collapsed, the first renewed outside contact was with Cyprus. Stop. Liars! According to Wikipedia under Mycenaean Greeks. I'm going to cut to the chase. They was lying. This is the reason why they came in. Quote, the eruption of Thera, which according to archaeological data occurred in 1500 BC, resulted in the decline of the Mayan civilization of Crete. This turn of events gave the opportunity to the Mycenaeans to spread their influence throughout the Aegean. Around 1450 BC, they were in control of Crete itself, including Kosmos, and colonized several other Aegean islands, reaching as far as Rhodes. Example, I told you. Mind you now, the scholars have no earthly idea where the Mycenaean Greeks came from whatsoever either. They know rulership changed because the style of living changed. They, just like all of our world history discoveries, were a mixed bag of people who were dominated by an elite warrior class. Question, did you notice our Cyprus, Crete, Redonian connection? As you can plainly see, just like we have discovered before, after every war or disaster, there is a population explosion. And it is my theory, Saul used the original Redonians to see not only the adjacent coast, but also the whole world with cloned Greeks. Notice, up until the Sea People's invasion in the Bronze Age collapse, not one mention of how one society took over another. We just proved that they didn't invade. But let's continue for more clues, shall we? The next one, Archaic era. Quote, in the 8th century BC, the island settlements started to form with the coming of the Dorians. The cemeteries of Camaros and Iword yielded several exquisite exemplars of the Orientalizing Rhodean Jewry, dating in the 7th and early 6th century BC. Phoenician presence on the island at the I-word is attested in traditions recorded much later by Rhodean historians. Example, bingo, bingo, upcoming bingo. Why 3 bingos, you ponder? Well, the first bingo is for backing up the scriptures by saying, quote, Phoenician presence on the island. How does this back up the scriptures, you ponder? Well, if you Google ancient Carthage, it will say, doo-doo. According to Roman sources, Phoenician colonists from modern-day Lebanon, led by Dido, also known as Queen Alyssa, founded Carthage in 814 BC. Queen Alyssa was an exiled princess of the ancient Phoenician city of Tyre. Example. So as you can see, Carthage and the Rhodanes were business partners of cloned humans after all. I mean, how else do you think an exiled princess can establish a mighty sea and trading empire like Carthage in one lifetime? Surely, whoever exiled her didn't furnish her with enough manpower, trade, and clout to strike back. Of course, she ordered a clone army, etc. from Saul. The second bingo is for yet another bloodless takeover. I mean, saying, quote, with the coming of the Dorians, man, that's hardly a rape, raise, and pillage talk. It's becoming obvious. The Greeks were nothing but a bunch of clones. Each nation was cloned a little different, with scheduled upgrades each millennium and history overlapping tech support. The last bingo is for upcoming information videos. I mean, is Little Miss Ivy the only person who find it interesting? Greeks on one side of the continent were buried with, quote, Orientalizing Rhodean Jewry. Man, that's from one side of the island, and that's Orientalizing. That's on the other side of the continent with a signature name in it. Man, that's interesting. Don't you think that's interesting? Stay tuned for the answers. But let's continue for more Greek history. Now it's about to back up the Rhodanes were not Greeks, but lived amongst the Greeks under classical era. Quote, the Persians invaded and overran the island, but they were in turn defeated by forces from Athens in 478 BC. The Rhodean cities joined the Athenian League. When the P-word war broke out in 431 BC, Rhodes remained largely neutral, although it remained a member of the League. The war lasted until 404 BC, but by this time Rhodes had withdrawn entirely from the conflict and decided to go her own way. Example. I'm going to stop there, but as you can plainly see through the context, the Rhodanians, however you want to say it, were not Greek, yet they had the Greeks fight wars for them. In fact, around 200 BC, well, check it out. According to Wikipedia under League of the Islanders, I'm going to cut to the chase, of course. Quote, the League of the Islanders was a federal league of ancient Greek city-states encompassing the Clydesdales Islands in the Aegean Sea. The league was re-established under the leadership of Rhodes in 200 BC and survived until 167 BC. Example, which backs up our next exposing understanding. What is that, you wonder? Exposing who exactly the Rhodanian merchants were in history. We got them dead to rights. Y'all want to know who they were?